Hey everybody, and welcome to the Free Assange Vigil. This is a very special one. We're kind of a little bit late, but I would like to thank everybody for joining us nonetheless. Today has been super exciting and super eventful. But first we need to go over some of the numbers for the trial and for the time that they've been in prison.
So it has been 321 days since political prisoner Julian Assange's asylum was illegally revoked and he was arrested at the Ecuadorian Embassy in London. That makes it 3,368 days of unlawful and arbitrary detention of the award-winning publisher and editor of WikiLeaks, Julian Assange. And today also marks the 350th day of incarceration currently, and the $241,000 of fines for one Chelsea Manning for resisting a grand jury subpoena to testify in front of an unconstitutional secret grand jury. So today we had a number of events. First, we went to the jail in which Chelsea Manning is being detained. And then later on, we went to a special First Amendment event hosted by none other than Alex Jones of InfoWars. So I will let whoever would like to begin take us away.
Yeah, so we started out this morning at about noon going to Chelsea Manning's prison. We had a bunch of awesome groups from Baltimore join us. We had Ian Schlackman come and actually speak with us, so that was really cool. He came and gave a couple different little impromptu speeches. We passed around the letter that Chelsea Manning wrote to her grand jury, or to her judge in her grand jury. Trenga, I believe the name is. And we each take turns reading a paragraph or two and then moved it to the next person. And then we also read the Jeremy Hammond statements as well. And then we also went through and did just multiple other pieces. Like if someone wanted to speak, they had the chance to.
One of those speakers, by the way, was Ian Schlackman, politician in the Baltimore area and a former presidential candidate for the Green Party ticket. He was there with the People's Power Assembly is the name of the group, I believe. They came up from Baltimore. They were joined by Ian Chambers, who is an activist who has been working for many decades for welfare reform in the Baltimore area, former associate of the great Malcolm X, and she made a very powerful speech that I believe was recorded on the Action for Assange YouTube channel. Definitely check that out.
Yeah, so do you guys have any thoughts about actually getting to see Chelsea Manning and Jeremy Hammond's detention center and in person? It was a very cold day, cloudy day. We were sort of under an underpass in the parking lot, essentially in front of the visitors' entrance of the detention center. We hope that our whistleblowing and our actions, we hope Chelsea, we hope Jeremy heard us. But just getting to be there in person, do you guys have any thoughts about that?
So Alexandria is the city of just ridiculous wealth, and it's centered, right smack in the heart of intelligence community country, and it just sort of rises up out of the ground as like I don't know, sort of I guess a symbol of what awaits people that defy that institutional power structure in Alexandria. And it's really not assuming, because there's just, a basic downtown business district and some restaurants and some high rises, and then boom, prison.
In the middle of everything. You turn right off the main road, you drive for about 30 seconds, you go to the right of a highway overpass, and then there is the prison. Like, the prison is here, and there's luxury housing lining the street it is sitting on.
It's almost as if it's a warning to those who defy the corporate system of oppression that we have currently, that if you do not play by our rules, then you will be taken away from the opportunity to go to Subway and all of these lovely cafes, and instead you will go to this expensive cathedral just a few feet away. Interestingly, this was pointed out to me by the aforementioned Annie Chambers. There are a couple of condominium buildings that are right next to the jail cell or the whole prison complex in which Chelsea Manning is held. Supposedly, those apartment buildings were supposed to be reserved for subsidized housing units, for low-income housing, and instead they have been reserved largely for private rentals for people with a substantial amount of money. An interesting little contrast between the haves and the people in prison who are nothing if not the have-nots.
Yeah.
So we found out today that it was Julian Assange's trial is going to wrap for the first part of this extradition hearing tomorrow. We're here till what, Saturday? Yeah.
Saturday
morning. We have a demonstration planned between the Capitol building and the Supreme Court building tomorrow. We're going to Lee Camp tomorrow.
We are going to Lee Camp tomorrow.
Redacted tonight.
And CPAC starts.
CPAC is the Conservative Political Action Committee, and they host their yearly convention, which is like right-wing mecca. And it's happening right down the street from where we are, with all of these signs and banners and whatnot that say "Free Julian Assange" all over it. And it seems like a perfectly reasonable place to go and
participate.
Yeah, kind of share the material that we've prepared. And I feel like after talking to Cassandra Fairbanks and listening to her, like it is probably the right idea to take a Free Assange movement right in the middle of CPAC.
And we have the clothes to do it.
So if we want to talk about the event that we went to tonight, if you guys notice, we have been posting the flag behind us every night, and every day we do collect more signatures. And tonight we got a lot of signatures at the event we went to. So we went to this emergency free speech event where Alex Jones was actually one of the keynote speakers, I would say.
I think he actually funded the event, like he paid for its assembly.
Full disclosure, we did not expect to walk out on our own accord. We expected to be escorted out of this event. And when we walked in,
and check this out on Burmes's channel.
Yes, Jason Burmes uploaded quite a bit of interesting content today about Alex Jones. But anyway, Christy, you were about to explain what's
Go ahead, Steve.
Papa Red Bear's up there on stage telling his audience, like, they need to stop supporting Donald Trump if Donald Trump doesn't do right by Julian Assange. That's what we walked into the room.
Yeah, we walked into not expecting Alex Jones to be speaking already, but B, Alex Jones to be speaking explicitly on Julian Assange and supporting him, and essentially what Steve just said, telling the room that Trump should pardon him, and if he doesn't, that the whole room should no longer support him as the president.
And none of us are Alex Jones supporters. Like, none of us can say we check 90% of Alex Jones's ideological boxes. But when he started that Julian Assange, not bit, but like legitimate call for people to consider their opinions, we then turned it into a Free Assange route. And it was quite incredible. Dak got to go up and ask questions as well, but I got to go up to the open microphone and remind everyone that Julian Assange is facing 175 years in prison if he's extradited to the U.S. I educated them that he had been strip searched twice, that he had been put in handcuffs 11 times, that he had been moved to multiple different holding facilities, had his cell searched. And they agreed that Julian Assange needs to go free. And thank you, I guess, if any of them are watching, if anyone that we interacted with there.
It's one thing to like believe that a content creator, no matter what political stripe, has a principled stand on this particular issue. But the creators themselves have become less willing to be public about it. And we had the opportunity and the means to get them to, to confront them with the issue. And they were on the right side of it, like all of them. Maybe not as vocally as we would like, but we got some time to work on them.
Yeah.
And holy fuck, we got Michael Flynn Jr. signed that flag. We walked up to Michael Flynn's kid. He's all, hey, sign this flag for Julian Assange. And the guy was like, yeah, well, fuck, I guess, yeah. All right. I'll do that.
Andrew
I'll
was
sign the
a
flag.
sort of missionary for Assange tonight, asking people to please sign the flag.
You guys don't know how lucky we are that this dude did not grow up just a little bit different and was like bringing the same energy to like Mormonism or,
he actually sat right next to Alex Jones. He was taking a little bit of a breather, and Andrew was
It's hard
trying
for him to walk that.
Yeah,
far. All the supplements. are really
yeah,
good.
he was definitely pulsing a little bit around the pecs, and Andrew was trying to convince him to come on the vigil. I'm not sure how enticing the offer was, but
No, I did not. I told him about what we're doing. I did not invite him to the.
you were you were
perfectly clear.
You were
Right.
beginning to invite him to the vigil. He's like, excuse me. He stood up and
Well, I would like him to be an organizing partner, to call for people specifically to get in the streets to save Julian's life. That is the extent of the relationship I want to have with Alex Jones.
That crazy bastard got 10,000 people to a Bilderberg group meeting.
All right, but this is the problem with that whole event we went to, which I think there were probably, how many people do you think there were there? Like maybe 200 at the most. The problem with that whole event is it's a gathering of political opportunists. These people don't actually, as far as I could see, they don't actually believe in the virtue of what Julian Assange was doing. I
think a lot of them actually do.
Well,
a lot of the people in the crowd, because it was when we started chanting, they were chanting back. Some of the people on stage, like Gavin McGinnis, which is a great story, some of the people on stage may inherently not support him and just feign it, but most of those human flesh and blood people there support Julian, even if they don't know the full extent of the circumstances and everything that's happened to him, because there's a basic understanding that what is happening is fucking wrong.
I don't think they actually do. I think that they have a superficial interest in Julian just because Assange's last major action, as far as they're aware, was to reveal the corruption within the Democratic National Committee. I think that they have a kind of indirect support for Julian just because he damaged Hillary Clinton. And so it isn't based on any kind of defense of what Assange is doing, because I'm sure these right-wingers were very vocal in their contempt of Julian during the release of the collateral murder.
So one of the response we got when Andrew did ask them about Julian and laid out what Julian is facing, what has happened to him this week, we got the response that Julian should come here and reveal his sources. And that seems to be a very typical conservative right-leaning talking point, that they do want Julian to come here so that he will reveal sources, so that he will blow up the Clintons, he will expose the deep state, and he will put to rest who murdered Seth Rich. And unfortunately, we feel like we are always in the position to educate them on who Julian Assange really is. Julian Assange is a principled man who founded WikiLeaks on the principle that sources will remain anonymous and protected, even to the point he has gone so far to protect sources that are not his own, specifically in the case of Edward Snowden. So we have this, we do have a little disillusionment of who this crowd thinks Julian Assange is and what he can do for them. It's a little bit of an opportunity for them that he is being used as a key of opportunity, and ultimately they were using him as a token of how they can win back the country by exposing the liberal elite. And I feel like that is a very superficial and disingenuous view of Julian Assange as a man who has human rights that are continuously being violated, because I feel like the conservative base just wants to use him to their own benefit.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's what everybody with a political team wants to do.
Yeah, and
with Julian Assange,
and I wasn't
not
referring
defending.
to
Yeah, I'm not
the people
Right,
in
right,
charge.
I was-
I was referring to the humans
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
that know something is fucking wrong.
Yeah, like there
Yeah.
were people on stage who have a brand to
There
protect.
I think there's a
You
there
know,
was a mix
and-
of what
and
was happening
there's-
there.
We're in Washington D.C. If you can find me a room that isn't this one, that doesn't have a bunch of craven opportunists in it, especially of the political stripe, like, I don't know, dude, I'll build an addition onto your house for free. Like, and just donate the labor, fucking however you want it to look. But like nobody in that room, including us, walked in there without an agenda.
That's true.
And we exercised our agenda to the best of our ability.
We exercised our First Amendment.
Yeah.
That's
At the
literally all
Free
we
Speech
did.
Summit.
Yeah.
Seemed like a perfectly reasonable place to do it.
And we turned a crazy right-wing event that literally would have just been a hoorah, hoorah, into a loud, boisterous, educated, free Assange rally. We got to talk about all of the time that he's going to serve if he comes to the U.S., about the extradition and how it has to be ended. I sat down with tons of people and was like, hey, did you know that they handcuffed him 11 times and strip searched him twice? And people are, what? So it's just having that conversation, and you can change the energy in a room like that if you're the one person that's willing to just yell, free Julian Assange.
But at the same time, when Alex Jones is saying that if Donald Trump does not free Julian Assange or end this persecution of him, then he will have shown himself to be a submissive to the globalists, I think was the way.
That's the best things Jones said since 9/11 was an inside job.
But at the same time, let me ask you this. What good is that going to do if Trump has been reelected and he has nothing to lose politically? Like, with these people who are talking about, when are they going to actually put pressure on Donald Trump?
Well, that's why we're here to help
We
them do that.
don't have a whole lot of time, and somehow I don't think that these conservatives are going to stay home in November just because Donald Trump has not dropped the charges against Assange. I really don't think it's as prominent an issue for the American people overall as we would hope it really ought to be. But for these conservatives who already got what they want, which was the thwarting of Hillary Clinton in 2016, I don't think they really think much of Assange one way or the other.
I think you're wrong.
I mean, yeah, like, I don't know, have him on your show, talk to him, see what, I don't know. I
just spent 3 hours in a room with 200 of them. I mean, it seemed to me they were more interested in shouting down socialism than they were in bringing Assange.
Sure.
Kind of
read
recognizing
the
him as a
room.
hero.
I mean, yeah, no, I get it. Like, if you're gonna build an inroad, do it with the people who are at least have a history of putting asses in the streets for their particular cause. And if we can build an inroad this way and we can build an inroad the other way, at the end of it, we get a lot of people in the streets. And we're not talking about necessarily the leadership, but just any random person in that room who would be like, yeah, you know what? Fuck it. I'll go out for that today.
So Josh has one of the videos that we took from the event of Andrew asking them at the very end. Let's see if we can pull that up.
This was my highlight.
We want to thank everybody for turning out here.
These are your 15
National
minutes.
File and Tom Packer for making it happen. Julian Assange is facing 175 years in prison for the crime. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Julian Assange is facing 175 years in prison for the crime of revealing United States war crimes, corruption, the death of civilians, the torture in Guantanamo Bay. On Monday night, he was strip searched 2 times. He was moved to 5 different holding cells, and he handcuffed 11 times to be placed in a glass box. What can we do to save his life?
So, the reason why Julian Assange is not pardoned and in the United States is because he will not turn over his sources.
That is the most principled stance a journalist can take.
So that's why we support. So, hey, Julian Assange is great. He's obviously not.
I ask that everyone in this room calls for Donald Trump to end the extradition of Julian Assange.
Only one decision! No extradition! There's only one decision! No extradition! There's only one decision! No extradition!
I was talking about how the trumpeters in the audience are not very sympathetic to socialism. I just have to ask you, with the way that you were dressed tonight, could you look like any more of a communist if you tried?
Maybe.
I mean, with that, between the beard and the little coat that you had, I mean, it just, it was beautiful. It was sexy, but I just don't know if it really gelled with their style. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
All right. So, any final thoughts on the?
I'm gonna let that speak for itself.
So one of the things we wanted to do tonight was to bring in some of the people that have helped us plan this trip and are here with us, who've gone to the actions. So let's see if we can bring some
Come on.
people over.
Stop looking panicked.
We've got a whole murderer's row here with us tonight. Only the best people, and it looks like the first one to come down is going to be Kendra.
Come on, Kendra.
Maybe Christy can introduce
We
Kendra
don't
better
have to
than
do
me.
it one at a time.
We're going to do it all together.
All right. Well, more
all right.
than one person could come over.
There's plenty of room.
You're not even remotely on camera.
Yeah, no, you gotta see yourself.
Hi, Steve.
Hey,
Kendra, come on in,
Come on,
Justin.
Justin.
We got room. Come on over. Come on over. There.
Genty, you want to come in too? Because we have the whole Colorado crew.
Yeah, it's the Denver crew. And Durango.
Yeah.
All right,
You can come right here.
there we go. This is the kind of camaraderie and togetherness that we strive for in the activist community.
So you guys are from Denver Action for Assange. Tell us a little bit about how Denver got started and why you guys wanted to come to DC.
Sorry, a little bit tired here. Long days. But so we got started right after Assange was arrested. And actually it was funny because I was wondering how I had found the vigils, and then I realized tonight, after we had gone to bring the flag and seeing Cassandra Fairbanks, and I was like, that's how. I had followed her on Twitter, and she had she was streaming when she was out in front of the embassy right before Assange was arrested.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I found Unity for Jay. And we just, I just started that group. I expected to find people already out there fighting. I thought I would join something, and there wasn't anything there. And so we started a meetup, got hooked up with Unity for Jay, and met these great people. Met Jocelyn right away. She signed up right away on the meetup. It was her idea to go to the Jimmy Dore show and get signatures there, and that's where we got Genties, and or not signatures but email addresses, and so that's how at least this crew came together.
And had any of you done anything in the activist world? Were there any other causes that you had been actively involved in or volunteered in before?
No.
I mean, I myself, I was a little active for Bernie Sanders, as I am now, but I'm one of the people pressuring my colleagues to pressure Bernie Sanders to, at least say Assange's name and claim out front what's he going to do about Assange. Is he going to go through with this extradition? Is he going to free him? What's he going to do about Chelsea Manning? So I'm hopefully my colleagues and I can get Bernie Sanders on point on that issue.
And so what about, how did DC come into your minds? You guys were kind of the starting point for DC, and just how did it come to you guys, and what inspired you to make the journey here too?
Well, I was watching the Action for Assange streams, and you guys were talking about going to London to cover the hearings, and I wanted to do that as well, but I didn't think I could travel all the way to London. And so I had the idea, why don't we do something in DC? That I was inspired by all the wonderful activists in London who get out and do great actions, and I thought this whole persecution originates here in DC, and so we should have something going on this side of the ocean to protest what's going on as well.
What about you guys? What about DC appealed to you?
I think one, it's great, working with your team as well. We've gotten a lot of support, even like going back and forward with Andrew, and you guys have had me on the vigils and stuff like that. And so it was actually, seeing a message from you, hey, you want to get in and help us organize? And I think even at that time, not sure about coming, but to echo, Jocelyn's sentiments, like this is where it started. And I think too, it's, things are more political here. It's good to have a bigger group and people coming, and it's a lot of work. Like, you see an event happen, but it's a lot of stuff that goes into it behind the scenes. So it was good to be a part of it. And our group in Denver was also there on the 24th and had their event too. And so it was good. Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask is how, because we've been communicating with you through various channels up to this point, how did you first get interested in Assange's case? What was the sort of the spark that first got you involved?
Well, I've been aware of Julian Assange and WikiLeaks since 2010, just kind of peripherally, because I wasn't really online so much then. I was a little bit off the grid for some years, but I was always aware and appreciative of what they were doing. And then it was in 2018 when I heard that his asylum was being threatened, that I got more attentive to the situation, and also was brought in by Unity for J by watching the vigils and just learning more and delving more deeply into it, and watching interviews with Julian, reading his words, getting to know who this person was and what his values are, and just very appreciative, and felt like getting involved to speak against what's happening to him.
What about you, Genty? What first brought you into it?
I think the biggest thing for me was really the Iraq War era. The collateral murder video. At that point, I was kind of getting into my anti-imperialist streak, I thought this man has the right idea. And as a lot of people, I was just disgusted and repulsed by what was going on out there. And here domestically, the surveillance state complementing that ridiculous war. And I was just, frankly angry about it. And Julian Assange and WikiLeaks were the only thing that seemed to put out any sanity, any truth in this kind of wave of fear and conformity. So it's kind of what sparked it for me. And then, of course, we went from Bush to Obama, and the liberals, didn't really care a whole lot anymore about Assange. So it's kind of
Nick freaking Fuentes made that exact same point and could draw, could figure out that there was an anti-war movement in Berkeley, but can't figure out that it's an institutional march further and further to the right, which is why there's such a thing as, speech zones on campus.
Right.
They won't let Abby Martin in Georgia, and they won't let Ben Shapiro in Berkeley. It's like you gotta look at the whole picture, and you have to move into a post-partisan reality. We don't get to do this as red team or blue team or what. It's not going to fucking happen that way.
Exactly.
And so before we wrap up, we've had 3 action days here in DC. Do you guys have any thoughts so far, kind of in the middle of this week, how it's been going, how you'd like to see it go the next 2 days? Any thoughts as far as getting to experience DC in an activist viewpoint?
I mean, I think it's been pretty great. I think each day has been unique, and then also had, you know, many surprises, even like, you know, our little candle thing at Seth Rich, which I think we should maybe give that another go.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
yes. And
We got plans.
you know, so, you know, media day I think was great. You know, I feel like the momentum's building even while we're here, which is good. We've had so many good independent student journalists out here.
Yes,
You know, I mean,
yes.
this is the
We've had a lot of student journalists come and report on our actions.
Most of them good. One who was a bit of an elitist snob, and he's going to make a great stenographer for the Washington Post one day.
Well, you never know the seed you plant, Dad.
Right.
You never know.
That's what we're here for.
I don't see too much sunshine in that seed's future, but anyway.
All right. Do you guys, can you let everybody know how to follow Denver's group? And if you guys have any final words before we close.
Sure. We're at on Twitter at DNVFreeJA. That's our Twitter handle, and so you can follow us there. We tweet out all of our events. We're also hooked up now with Action for Assange. We were Denver Free Assange, but we've gotten a lot of support from you guys, so you'll be able to hear that on the vigils and things like that. We look forward to just growing with other groups and groups we're out here. So
awesome. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for our part 2 of the Vigil nightly wrap up tonight. I'm Christy Doff.
I'm Steve Boykinen.
I'm Andrew Smith.
I'm Dak Rouleau.
And we will check in with you tomorrow morning. Thanks for joining us.